Here we go. We're recording. So, all right, here we go. So, hello everyone. Welcome once again. Thank you for joining us here for Drop the Mic, the Chamber podcast. I'm Mo Beliveau, your host. I am the executive director for the Chamber of Greater Easthampton. And this is where I get to talk to chamber members, local people of interest, thought leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and all that sort of thing. And this is where I get to talk about who they are, what they do, but more importantly, which is near and dear to my heart, is why they do it. I want to know about the juice, what gets them out of bed in the morning. But before we dive into today's guest, I want to thank Easthampton Media. They are our partners here for this project. Jen Ramsey, executive director, and her team, Ryan and Tim Riley, always make us look and sound fabulous. And I owe them a lot of thanks. So thank you. So today is episode 13, and today I'm really excited. We have with us today a professional podcaster, thought generator, and the host of Growth Now Movement, Justin Schenck. And hey, Justin, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. You know, I'm honored. I know the chamber life. Obviously, we had met at a chamber conference in Nashville, and so I used to work within chambers, and I'm just honored that you guys are willing to open the doors for me to come in here and share my story and you know, talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, but absolutely honored to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. I was so thrilled that you said that you would come and join us. And I have to tell you, Justin, that you left such a mark on my heart and soul when we first met. It was back in 2015, I think it was, at my very first chamber conference. And we just happened to randomly meet, and we talked for about 15 or 20 minutes, but you were right on my wave, and we just got into this discussion. And you walked away, and I thought to myself, that young man is going somewhere. And I'm really amazed to see what you've accomplished in really so little time. So let's get into it. And if you could help our audience, give us a little bit of your backstory. Who is Justin Schenck?
Yeah, that's a very broad question, but who I am today, I'm a podcaster, right? So I started podcasting I think we're coming up as of this recording, we're coming up on 5 years of podcasting. So when we met, I was brand new to the podcast game, right? And so I have become a full-time podcaster. I've been doing it full-time for almost 3 years now. And it's truly been a labor of love of trying to figure out how to navigate this crazy medium where you get an opportunity to have amazing conversations like this one and everything from that standpoint. But really, it came from the idea of a purpose-driven goal, right? And so I'll back up a little bit. I originally wanted to start the podcast because I had this dream of being an entrepreneur. I wanted to write my own checks. I wanted to schedule my own schedule. I didn't want to have anybody else telling me what to do. And I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And so the original idea behind the podcast was I wanted to interview successful entrepreneurs in the world so I could learn. So I could learn from them to then implement that into my business. Because at that point, I had 3 failed businesses on the side. And I was like, clearly I'm doing something wrong. Let me figure out how to do it a little bit better. And what ended up happening was 5 months before I launched the podcast, my mom lost a 20-year battle to opioids. Oh. And it was in that moment that it completely shifted my perspective of life. It completely shifted my perspective of what you should be getting out of life. Because before it was, I wanted to make a lot of money as an entrepreneur. So people would look at me and say, wow, Justin really made it. Despite the odds, he really made it and he's doing great. And what ended up happening when my mom passed away was I really started this journey of how do we enjoy life at a rock bottom moment place? How do we enjoy life even when things on the outside aren't going too well? Because the reality is things are going to be tough for a lot of people at any given moment. And it's about how do we really enjoy the process? And that's what the Growth Now movement became about. And I think that's why it resonates all over the world now, where it now gets played in over 100 countries every single week. And I feel really, really blessed. And It's really because it's that purpose of, let me teach people that even in those rock bottom moments, there's hope, because my mom didn't have it. And that's why she ended up losing her life. And so now it's about spreading that message and having a little fun while I'm doing it too.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that was your why statement?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, look, like, I think whys evolve over time, right? Like, I think that as we grow as entrepreneurs, the why is constantly changing and evolving and growing, to take that word into account, right? But it's always been that underlying tone of, it doesn't matter where you come from, you can still make life great. Because of where I came from, right? With my mom with the opioid addiction, and my dad had spent some time in jail. And I was a terrible student. I had a 1.7 GPA in high school at one point. Like, it wasn't looking too good. And so I really believe that at any given moment, you can make a shift in your life to then build the life that you really want. And so that's always been the basis of the why, but it's constantly evolved and grown over time.
Right, right. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because as I was kind of sitting down and preparing to chat with you today, I was thinking about my own, my own why. When was it? I think it was maybe in 2014, early 2014, I stumbled across the book, Start With Why, right? Simon Sinek. And that book changed my life. And as I came to the chamber, I realized that applies to everything, right? It applies to everything. And, but it's interesting, because recently I've been feeling that my own why, and of course, obviously the chamber's why, is starting to, I feel a yearning to, if it's evolving, it's growing, it's building. It's not necessarily changing, but growing and expanding out, right? As the universe is calling us always to do, and expanding out.
No, and I love that you said that. Like, that's what's happening right now in the world, right? COVID happened. And there's this massive shift across the board. And, I did live events, and I would travel the country and speak, and I would do all these things. And COVID came and said, nope, that's not happening right now, buddy. And it was up to me to kind of take a step back and go, why is this happening for me? And how can I utilize this to reach more lives and do all these other things? My own personal events switched to virtual, where we just had one a couple of weeks ago where people were attending from 6 different countries, and just really blown away by the fact that I've been able to kind of take a look at it and go, okay, how can I make this an even better situation? And dive even deeper into, why is this happening in the world, and what can I do to make it a little bit brighter for others?
Right. So interesting. And so it's funny, because, when I decided to, because I had been thinking about doing podcasting for years, and I was just, I don't know, nervous. I don't know what about, and, just do it, right? Did that whole thing about just do it. And so I did, and I'm not looking back, and I'm really excited. But I also decided that I wanted to do more public speaking. So I decided that, all right, now 2020 was going to be the year, and I went out and I put out some proposals, and actually ACE accepted a proposal from me, and then my local chapter, MACE, also accepted. So I was like, yes, this is the year 2020. And then, no, it's not, forget it. So now it's like, I have these accepted proposals. So I can't wait to tell people that story, because yes, I am. I'm on my way. I was accepted. It was 2020, just got in the way.
Yeah. 2020.
I'll get there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing too. Like, sometimes, I mean, for everybody has a different lesson from this, right? And sometimes it is to take a breath and breathe and pause. And sometimes that's enough. But I'm excited to see what you do once you get out there and the world opens back up and you're on these stages and you're doing all this stuff. That's going to be exciting to watch.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Hopefully it'll be coming to an end pretty soon. But it's really kind of hard to put that on the shelf, though, right? It's been 12 months and I was supercharged, and now I'm trying to maintain that charge in the battery, so to speak,
Yeah. And there's different ways. Like, I think podcasting for me has been an outlet, like, just doing solo episodes and kind of taking some of my new ideas and correct, right? 12 months is a long time. Sometimes we need to breathe for 12 minutes versus 12 months. And that's kind of the shift there. But for me, it's really actually taking this time and taking a step back and taking my gas off the pedal, or my foot off the pedal. And it's made me kind of focus in on getting a little bit more clear on my messaging and what's the Growth Now movement all about. And I've really kind of niched down into that message. And that's where I've come up with this concept of the 4 pillars of our life, which is business, relationships, spirituality, and wellness. And if we can focus on those 4 pillars and find stability, not massive success in any of them if we don't want to, but find stability within those 4 pillars, that's where we find happiness. That's where we find contentment. That's where we find that smile in the morning when we wake up, because you're able to touch on the 4 main things that are happening in your life at any given time. And if you can focus on continuous growth and improvement in those, you're going to obviously find happiness in that, right? Like, and so it's crazy. And I'll touch on this really quick. I understand that there are seasons in our life where we have to go head down and focus really hard on something, whether it's on business or our wellness or whatever.
Right.
But we have to kind of take a step back and go, okay, look, my relationships are still important, even though business or my wellness is really important right now. My relationships are still important. So we have to check in on those, right? And so in the beginning of 2021, I decided that I was going to truly focus on my wellness and my fitness and these things that I let slip away because business took over, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so now for me, the wellness pillar is getting all of the attention, right? Like I'm like, okay, I'm working out twice a day. I'm drinking a gallon of water every day. I'm no cheat meals, no alcohol, all these things. And proud to say that as of this morning, I'm down 27 pounds.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So that's been exciting. I'm in the best shape of my life right now, which is great. But at the same time, you have to go and check in with yourself on a regular basis and say, those other pillars, are they getting the attention they need? You know, have I faltered on my business? Have I faltered in my relationships? Have I faltered in my spirituality? Have I missed that boat? And I think that that's really kind of been able, there's moments and days of stress where I'm like, okay, yes, my fitness is important, but I have to check in on those other things to make sure that at the end of this fitness journey, or at the end of the challenge that I'm doing currently, is everything else still good? Because otherwise it's worthless. It's worthless to do the work.
Right. And you're miserable and the whole 9 yards. You know what I think was interesting for me during this COVID time is, I mean, I absolutely love what I do for the chamber. And it's very interesting because over time I have realized, I thought, because I'm 57 years old, right? And I thought, when I was young, I was going to have this Mary Tyler Moore thing. And and I want to be this, inspirational, whatever, and Oprah, and I'm going to be, but you know what? I realized that your impact is equally as massive. It doesn't need to be on a global stage, right? So my coming to Mo moment was, here at the chamber, what better platform could I possibly have than in the role of the executive director to have impact on people's lives, in their professional lives, and ultimately too in their personal, right? As to how I'm moving about in the world. So I've come to really appreciate and love the fact that the chamber has given me such a perfect platform for me to strive to be the best Mo Beliveau I could possibly be. And some days, you know what? She's not as good as she was as yesterday, but she will try again tomorrow. And it doesn't have to be perfect. But I think sometimes we get caught up in, it's too little. No, it's not, because you have no idea, right? I was a massage therapist for 20 years prior to my coming to the chamber. And I worked with this one particular woman. I'll never forget. This was the biggest lesson I had in understanding the impact, as you're saying, on people's lives. And I decided to close my practice. And I went to go tell her this. Now, I, didn't know about this woman's life. I didn't know any of her details. I just knew that we worked together every week in silence, right? So there was obviously a relationship there, but there wasn't this, I didn't have a lot of the details of her life.
Yeah.
But I told her at the end of the session that I would be leaving, and she started to weep. And she's like, what am I going to do now? And I was like, oh my God, that was one of the biggest moments of my life. you have no idea the impact you're having on others.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And it's so true. Like, I think that we all have these big, huge visions for ourselves. And that's really important to have a direction, right? Like, I think almost with those big visions is where you find your why.
Yep.
And so for instance, I mean, yes, now my podcast does really, really well, but for a long time it didn't. And there was a time where I'd have, 35 people listening, 60 people listening, 12 people listening. But at that time when that was happening, somebody, and actually I was thinking in my head, I'm like, maybe I should just shut this down. It's not doing the things I thought it would. Right. And so somebody had reached out to me actually from Japan. And they said, because of your show, I decided not to take my life.
Okay.
And that's when I was doing 36 downloads an episode. And I was like, wow. And it was in that moment where I was like, as long as I have that impact of one person, I will continue to show up and do that, because that's all that matters, right? I didn't change the world with that one person, but I changed their world. I changed every single thing they're going to come in contact with for the rest of their life. And now, I mean, that's happened 5 or 6 times now where somebody's reached out and said, because of your message, this. And it's one of those things where I realized that even if you can go out there to change one life, that should be a good enough purpose for anybody, right? That should be a good enough why for anybody.
Yeah.
We worry so much about these big numbers because of the falsehoods of social media and all these other things. Well, guess what? I've got a lot of friends.
Well, so where were we? We're talking about, where did I lose you? When, we're fooled by we're lured by this whole social media number thing. And it's the accumulation or the sum of all of the small, or I don't even want to use that word small, individual, unseen heroes, right?
Right. Yeah.
That raises the vibration of the globe.
Yeah. I love that you said that, like the unseen heroes of the world, right? Like, I kind of ask myself all the time, and I work with entrepreneurs now to help build their platform and help them kind of grow out their brands. And I always ask the question, is what we're doing right now about you or about the impact that you're trying to make? Right. And so because they get caught up in the numbers, and I go, well, if you have 10,000 fake followers on social media, is that for you or for the impact you're trying to make? Like, let's focus on the important things, right? Podcasting happens to be the vehicle that I use to be able to do what I do. There's a lot of other vehicles to do that, right? Whether it's through blogging, through public speaking, through writing a book, through running your own business or your own practice or your own whatever, right? There's a ton of different vehicles to be able to make the impact that you want to make. It's just about finding the one that's kind of your perfect niche and then doubling down on that. And again, if it's, hey, I opened up a massage practice here in my hometown and I have 100 solid clients who love me, and I change their day every single day, and I change their life because now they can sleep comfortably. Now they can do all these things. That's life changing. And so we sometimes have to reflect on the impact that we're making that we're not always aware of. And again, I think we keep going back to this, but taking that step back and taking a deep breath and going, oh wait, I am serving a purpose. I have to ask myself if I'm in line with the purpose I'm serving.
Right. This reminds me of one of your growth moments. Is that what you're calling it?
The weekly moments of growth?
Yes, thank you. The weekly moments of growth, and step into the room. Mm-hmm. Step into the room. I love that. I feel like, so many times we hesitate, or we walk right by the room. Yeah. Right. And I've often said to, folks who I chat with that, you have to, or I try to remember to show up as my authentic self, to say what I need to say, to be what I need to be in any given moment, and not worry about how someone else is going to respond, because I have no control over that. Right. And how they're going to respond. So, but also if I don't follow through on that, I'm not allowing them to make that choice in that moment to make the correct response for who they are and what they need to do. Right. Yeah. And stepping into the room, you shared is the exact same thing. If you don't step into the room, then you've denied that other person, those other people in the room, whatever it is that you're bringing, which you have no clue about probably, because it's not meant for you.
Yeah. And it's really about showing up, right? Like, and so for the longest time, I didn't show up. Like, I look at my life and, you know, I jokingly say, if there was a senior superlative in high school for least likely to succeed, it would have been me. And I mentioned earlier the 1.7 GPA, but the reality is I got those bad grades because I didn't show up. I checked out. I didn't ask questions when I had questions to ask. Like, I was the kid who was afraid to ask the question, right? Because God forbid somebody on the other side of the room would be like, that's a dumb question, Justin. How dare you? Like, you're an idiot. That's what I was worried about. And now it's funny that I make a living asking questions, right? But the reality is showing up as myself, my greatest self in that very moment, is what changes the game. If I don't show up, there's no opportunity. If I don't show up, I can't meet the people I want to meet. If I don't show up, I can't make the impact I want to make.
Right. I just love it. Show up, step into the room. So, Justin, throughout this whole COVID thing, what was the moment for you? Because I know you had started your conference, and I think it's only a couple of years old, or it was only maybe 1 year, one season.
Yeah, we only did one live event. Yeah.
Right. So do you remember the moment where you realized, okay, the total game it's changed. The game's over. What's going on here?
Yeah. I haven't thought about this in a while, so I'm glad you brought this up. So we did the first year, and I had 160 people attend, and I felt blessed and honored. They came from all over the country and Canada.
That's awesome.
I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so I was headed towards year two. I had the speaker lineup totally announced. I was probably going to hit about 300 attendees year two, which was my goal. My goal was to always double it in size every single year. And we were headed down that path. And then all of a sudden, I was down, actually, it's funny. I was down in Florida at PodFest speaking at their event with 2,000 people when coronavirus just had crept into the country. So it was out in Seattle. It just came up in my time hop like yesterday, the day before is when I spoke, and a year ago. Yeah. And I was like, okay, let me just wait it out, right? 2 weeks to flatten the curve is where it began. So at first I was like, okay, let me wait it out. And then I think it was then March. So the end of March. So by the end of this month that we're in now, I had kind of made the decision to pull the plug, and not pull the plug. I originally pushed it. I pushed it to September, and I announced new dates, and I was like, we got this. This will be fine. We're all going to be good, and continued to kind of forge ahead. And so I was like, all right, so what buffer is this doing for me? So my original mindset was, when I pushed it, I was like, okay, this gives me more time to sell more tickets. Like, no big deal. People will be excited to get back out there. We can interact with each other again. And that was kind of my mindset. And then it just kept going. And just kept happening. And I think it was in July that I was like, okay, I need to totally move this. And so what I ended up doing was I shifted to virtual. That was really hard for me. And it was really hard for me because I love community. I love bringing people together. I love being in the room. I love doing all that stuff. And so when I switched to virtual, I was like, how do I make the same impact virtually that I wanted to in person? And the neat part was I did it, and we had, I think the day of, about 190 people were active out of the people who had bought tickets and stuff like that. So virtually there's 190 people active, and they were interacting with each other and making connections. And I've seen masterminds get born out of it. I've seen business opportunities. I've seen podcast swaps. And so I was like, okay, great. I made that impact. So at first it was very much, I was bummed. I was just like, what do I do? Like, this has been my big thing. Like, this is the thing I'm excited about. This is all that stuff. And then I kind of had to take that breather, and my girlfriend helped a little bit through this process, but I was like, how do I reset my mindset on no to virtual events, no to Zoom calls, no to whatever? And so once I got through that, I got amped up about the opportunity to make a bigger impact. And it's just crazy now, a year later, we're still in this, right?
I know. Did you, during that process, ever question Your why?
No, I certainly didn't question my why. I questioned my business model. I questioned, am I going about the why in the right way? And so that certainly happened, because the fun fact is I lost thousands of dollars in my virtual event. And so it was one of those things of like, okay, let me question everything. Like, am I doing this the right way? Am I building it out the right way? But the why is so ingrained in me that it's really about what's the next vehicle or the next medium that's going to help me get my messaging out there. The why was never questioned, which is nice. Now that I'm reflecting, like, I love your questions, because I'm even reflecting on things that I never did. So I'm glad to know that my why is that solid that I didn't question it.
Right. Awesome. Do you feel like, are you a different person from this whole experience?
Yeah. And so I might surprise you with the house. So I question things a lot more now. I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use this word for lack of a better one. I'm a little bit more cynical about people in power and the way they're utilizing that power. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, not that I'm crazy on that side, but what I question is, I question more of why are people making the decisions they're making versus going, okay, cool, I support that 100%. And so what it's actually done on a positive side of that, because it sounds super negative the way I just worded it, what it's done is it's opened my eyes to the idea that I personally have more control over my life than I even thought before. It's opened me up to create whatever kind of magic I can online. It's opened me up to create more connection. Actually, we're a week and a half away. I'm doing a retreat in person, which I'm really excited about, with, people from all over coming in. By the way, it's a very small retreat. We're following all the state guidelines and the rules. We're doing all that.
By the way.
Yeah, little asterisks on that. But really excited. But I wouldn't have done that if this didn't open my eyes to, okay, what can I control? What am I in control of, and how can I deliver that impact? Right. And so it's really made me question, not authority, but it's made me question I'm trying to say this in the right way, so don't see, this is what I'm talking about. Maybe I do have to go back and edit myself on this one.
That's okay.
But when
we can.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. So when I look at it, I go, it makes me question how many times in my life I've allowed somebody at a higher pecking order than me tell me that I can and can't.
Right.
And so therefore I'm more open to being able to jump in head first and take control of the scenario in order to serve my purpose.
Okay. Wow. Do you see the world different?
I see it with more empathy. I've always been a pretty empathetic person. But I see it with more empathy because, you and I touched on this before you hit record. But the fear that people have in this moment, instead of still being able to kind of lean in and live their life. So I think there's more empathy with people's feelings a little bit. Obviously, look, here's the reality of the situation. We've lost 500,000 Americans. That's
my
just
God.
America, right? And so we have to be really conscious of that. And so I feel bad for those individuals. I think the empathy has certainly grown. But I'm excited to see what we do as a human race going forward after all of this is done. So I've become also optimistic of what we can create as a whole unit versus us versus them.
Right. I think too, which is exciting, and I don't take anything away from the tragedy of all of it. But rather than white knuckling to hanging on to what was, right? Nothing's the same.
Yeah.
We're not the same, the environment's not the same. But what are we going to do with what we have going forward? That's really, I get that. I love that. I find it full of hope, right? Yeah.
For sure. I mean, yeah, and I am excited for the future, and we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what we all create together. I think if I had to play prophet really quick, I think that there's going to be more togetherness than we've ever seen before, even though there's more divide in this moment than I've ever seen before. So it'll be really interesting to see that slowly unfold over the next couple of months of togetherness.
Right. So I know from listening to your podcast that you like to end your podcast with rapid fire questions. And I'm sure you get this all the time because now it's our chance to rapid fire you.
I'm nervous now.
No, don't be nervous. So I have five. 1, 2, 3. Where'd they all go? Oh, I got more than 5. They're rapid fire questions. So you ready?
I'm ready.
One word or like one sentence. So it's not going to be this big thing. So what is the biggest lesson that you have learned in the last 12 months?
Patience.
Oh, very nice. What's the hardest change you had to make in your life?
Whoa, that's a great, I'm stealing this question.
Yay, oh my God, that's exciting.
So good. The biggest change I've had to make is changing how I look at other people.
Very nice. Who has made the most impact on you and your why?
My mom.
Nice. What book are you reading now?
I am reading, and I don't remember the title, which is the worst, but I'm reading Michael J. Fox's newest book.
Oh, right. I don't remember I don't have the title either, but I'm sure that's really probably pretty profound.
So I'm about 150 pages in right now.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. I've been a huge fan of his since I was a kid, and then my grandfather had Parkinson's disease, and then he was diagnosed. So as a kid growing up and being a big fan, I was like, wow. And it hit me kind of hard at that time. And so I've read every book of his. So currently reading his newest one.
Nice. So your life has a soundtrack. What one song absolutely has to be on that soundtrack of your life?
Just such a good question. Okay, so like the forever song, like this always has to be on the soundtrack. Home by Michael Bublé.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So what's up? What's next for you? What's coming down the road? Can you share, or you got stuff in the chute that we have to wait in suspense for?
So one, I can share. The thing is with me, I will always do once the world allows. I always do live events, that's going to be in the future as well. And I look at my live events as a multiple day rock concert for entrepreneurs, and so that's super exciting once we can do that again. So that's happening. I'm actually for the first time I've opened up a podcast course online. It's always been one-on-one, and so for the first time I'm doing it an online course, which is exciting. And then I'm
started, didn't it?
Yeah, so it actually starts tomorrow night as of this chat. So yeah, so excited about that. And then there's actually something really big that I'm working on as a collective that I can't talk about yet. But I figured.
Oh, well, right. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned to that one.
Stay tuned. So, Justin, where can people find you if they want to learn more, if they want to tap into some of your resources that you've got going on for entrepreneurs? Where can they find you?
Best place. So wherever they listen to podcasts, they can search Growth Now Movement. It'll come up. So they can find me there. I always love people to click the subscribe button. On Instagram is my favorite platform for social media, which is Justin T. Schenck on Instagram. Good luck spelling my last name properly. And other than that, they can actually head to growthnowmovement.com for the website if they want to go that way as well.
Great. So, Justin, thank you so much. It was so delightful to have crossed your path all those years ago. And it's even more of a thrill to watch you evolve and share with the world your gifts. So I thank you for that. I thank you for taking time with me. Is there anything you want our viewers to know other than your website?
No,
that we have
I
covered?
think the thing is this, and this is kind of the message I always like to leave behind, is that having a direction is important, right? Having a big goal is super important. But it's not the most important thing, because here's the thing that I can tell you. If your goal is to make $1 million, I promise you that when you get there, and I hope that you do, but I promise you when you get there, you're going to go, how do I make 10 million? So find a way to enjoy the journey and find a way to enjoy the process, because therefore, whether you hit that goal or not, you're going to find happiness in your life. And I think that's the most important thing. But Mo, honestly, thank you so much for having me on and having this conversation. I'm so glad we crossed paths. It was one of those things where when we met, I was like, I'm so glad that I met you. Like, it was this crazy moment of like, wow, because it was odd. Like, I was there by myself. You were there by yourself. In this gigantic theater, we happened to sit next to each other. And then we started talking about everything but chamber life. And it was crazy. But this has been phenomenal. So thank you so much. I'm honored.
Well, thank you. Ditto, man. And I would also like to thank Easthampton Media for partnering with us on this project. And if you'd like to know more about the Chamber of Commerce here in Easthampton, you can find us at easthamptonchamber.org, anywhere that you like to get or listen to your podcasts. And that's it for now. Thanks.